You're still watching Morning Live on SABC. To remember, this is the TNA Biz Breakfast in collaboration with SABC. Today, we're actually looking back to the events of June 16, 1976, because tomorrow will be the 40th celebration, or rather the anniversary of the event. So we have the people who were directly involved during the day who are actually sharing with us their stories. But you at home can also share your memories with us by using hashtag TNA Biz Break and, talk to us about what you remember of the events of the day. Well, that day, Sechaba, let me just proceed to you. The question that I've been asking everyone as to what you remember of the day.
Well, I remember quite a lot about the day. But the most important thing is that June 16 for us started quite early. Because I remember very well in 1975, in November, we were at the meeting of SAZIM at DOCC. And after that meeting, we bought a copy of the Sunday Times. And the headline was quite emphatic about the fact that Afrikaans was going to be introduced in the schools in Soweto. At that time, we took it very lightly. And we never thought this is something that could fly in Johannesburg. But come January, it was quite clear that the apartheid government was intent on enforcing Afrikaans as a medium. Because Cedric de Beer, who was the then district inspector, was moving from school to school. Probably Fanyana Mazibuko will be able to talk about his interaction with Cedric de Beer. But fortunately, the school boards as well, they took up the matter. And the school board in Midlands, led by Ntate Keith Lehwale, they resigned en bloc. So the parents had tried, the teachers had tried, the school boards had tried. So it was left up to the students. So,
but why exactly were you against being taught in Afrikaans?
The most important thing to understand is that Bantu education on its own was to ensure that the African child is not going to be able to realize the type of future that they wanted. Now, if you added a language in order to bar them from progressing further with their education, it meant that you are closing the slightest opportunity that an African child has of making it and realizing their dreams. So there was no way in which Afrikaans could have been established, imposed. There was just no way. Because when we got ourselves organized, we started somewhere in February, in March, and in May. All those were meetings of SAZIM, talking about the same issue of Afrikaans as a medium. But on the 13th of June, as Popo says, that was now the cutting edge of the beginning of action against Afrikaans as a medium. That is where decisions were taken in order to ensure that we challenge this issue of Afrikaans as a medium.
Okay, but before considering the march route, did you perhaps try to, get in touch with the authorities to voice your concerns? Or was the march the only option that you had then?
Well, I hope South Africa would still remember that there was one secondary school called Puti Secondary School. That secondary school, the pupils there, they actually moved out of their classrooms in February, as early as February, because they've been talking to their parents as soon as that thing was introduced. They've been talking to their parents and talking to the teachers and so on. Now, it was clear, obviously, that the encroachment of Afrikaans was going to be reaching the high schools which had not yet begun to do Afrikaans as a medium. So those students were the ones who came to activists of SASM to inform them about the seriousness of this problem of Afrikaans as a medium. Then SASM was able to establish an action committee on the 13th of June in order to tackle the issue of Afrikaans as a medium. You see, the demonstration was a symbolic way in which we could be able to show how much we detest and how much we abhor this enforcement of a language.
Okay. Dr. Fanyana, let me just bring you into the conversation. You are a retired science teacher at Morris Isaacson High School. The participation of the teachers on that day, we do know that it was, mainly focused on the students, but the teachers, what were your feelings on the day?
That is a very difficult question to answer.
Okay.
But what I may say is that on the day itself, on June 16, 1976, there was very little visible participation and action by teachers. The assumption is that teachers knew nothing about what was going to happen. In fact, that is to a large extent very true. The most information that went out from the student was contained in a 1-inch or 2-inch column in the then Daily Mail, which said the students were going to march and so on. But I and the principal at Morris Isaacson were privy to what Tsietsi and a few who came into his office and asked him whether this was a wise move to undertake. And he said in Sepedi, le moya o foka ka tlhakore le siameng tsamang lo tšhisa tlhaga. That is, if the grass is dry and the wind is blowing in the right direction, go and bend the grass. Which meant if your assessment is that it is a good action, go and execute the action. Don't ask me. But then I am inclined to want to correct the view that teachers never had anything to do with political issues. Those who have studied the history of education in South Africa will be aware that in the 1950s, right here in Orlando West and in Orlando East, some teachers actually protested against Bantu education. Prominent of those were Dade Zik Mphahlele, Ike Matlare, Dade Mutuping, who ultimately were fired from teaching because of their activism and leading the protests against Bantu education. In the East Rand, Brakpan and Benoni, similar protests did take place. In the Eastern Cape, similar protests did take place. Even closer to 1976, in the Eastern Cape, I know that there were teachers who were involved even in much more serious political activity. In the Transvaal, there was student activism in the form of SASO and SASM, but I remember that there was the Black People's Convention, of which I was the first secretary, which was very actively formulating the thought processes of young people, a process which was called conscientization. The thinking of the adult world as well as the student world did not just fall from the sky. It was a slow and painstaking process with people sacrificing their education like Harry Nengwekulu and others who went around mobilizing and organizing the people. And later on we found out there were other political tendencies like the underground of the ANC who were busy spreading the word that action must be undertaken. But all these came to the fore after June 16. Now, the teachers in the country, the teachers in Soweto in particular, became much more visibly active after, I remember a day when I came back from fetching books from the station at Nansfield. I found the police having assaulted one of the teachers, Mr. Jeff Lekheto, who was popularly known as Mr. Clean, if those who remember those days. He was assaulted by the police, he was bleeding. And strangely enough, the person they were looking for, Tsietsi Mashinini, just went through a hole in the fence, singing a very vulgar song, wearing a balaclava and so on, and he escaped. They were trying to force the teachers to open the gate so that they could find Tsietsi, and Tsietsi went out right in front of their eyes. Anyway, from that moment, I phoned Curtis Nkondo, and we went from school to school telling teachers that there was going to be a meeting at which we took a resolution that we would resign en masse to force the department and the parents to come to sorry.
Okay, so in a nutshell, the teachers were in support of what the students were doing. I'm saying that in a nutshell, the teachers were in support of what the
strongly in support, and this support increased as we formed the Teachers Action Committee, or the then Committee of Six.
Okay.
The Committee of Six took a resolution that they would fan the flames of student activism and teacher activism by publishing on almost a daily basis articles that would be provocative to the system. And Curtis Nkondo was responsible for penning those articles and giving them to Tami Mazwai, Joel Crawley, the late Joyce Dube, and a few others. So that these articles, if you look at 1976 to 1977, you will see that almost on a daily basis, there were articles which emanated from the Committee of Six, or the Teachers Action Committee.
Okay, just hold a thought right there, because we need to take a quick commercial break once again. And after the commercial break, we'll be taking questions from the members of the public here or seated here on the floor. There are pieces of papers where you're seated, so you need to write your name and your question. Immediately after the break, we'll be taking your questions. At home, you can participate via Twitter. Use hashtag TNA BizBref. We're coming back.